Frank William Abagnale Jr. was just 16 years old when he began what would become a years-long crime spree spanning continents, identities, and millions of dollars. He wasn't driven by malice or greed initially. His life of crime began with a much simpler motivation: escape from a fractured home. At 16, his parents divorced, a crushing blow for Frank. Feeling lost and desperate, he left home, eventually realizing that the world was more complicated and expensive than he imagined. So, he did something impulsive. He altered his driver's license to make himself look 10 years older. The new identity opened up opportunities, and soon, he began experimenting with check fraud. He started small, writing checks from his bank account, hoping that the lag in processing times would give him an edge. But Frank quickly recognized the loopholes in banking systems, flaws he could exploit on a far grander scale. The young runaway from New York would soon become an international legend. After a series of smaller schemes, Frank devised a bolder plan that would allow him to travel extensively and live luxuriously. He would impersonate a pilot for the famed Pan American World Airways, or Pan AM. Studying airline uniforms, protocols, and the art of deadheading, a practice where pilots and crew could fly free on other airlines to reach their assignments, he realized this role could give him unparalleled mobility. A few forged documents later, Frank had successfully convinced airlines and hotel clerks alike that he was a Pan Am co-pilot. Dressed in a tailored airline uniform, he carried a fake employee ID card, complete with a forged signature from Pan Am's payroll officer. Despite never completing a day of flight training, Frank managed to hitch rides on over 250 flights, visiting 26 countries, lounging in first-class seats, and enjoying free hotel stays worldwide. Pilots trusted him as a colleague, and no one questioned the authenticity of his badge or uniform. Frank's remarkable ability to charm those around him and adapt to new situations was proving to be his most powerful weapon. Not content with merely posing as a pilot, Frank pushed his luck further. Inspired by a chance encounter with a doctor who offered to mentor him, Frank decided to try his hand at impersonating a physician. He altered documents, claimed to have lost his original credentials, and landed a position as an assistant supervisor at a hospital in Georgia. For 11 months, he managed to evade suspicion while overseeing an entire ward of interns. It was a high-stakes game. One small slip could have life-or-death consequences. Frank later admitted that he was terrified someone would ask him to perform a procedure. Fortunately for him and the patients, he was never required to use any real medical skills. As if two fake careers weren't enough, Frank then adopted the persona of a Harvard-trained lawyer. He forged a Harvard law diploma, passed the Louisiana bar exam, and secured a position with the state attorney general's office. Remarkably, he passed the exam after studying law books for only 2 weeks. Frank's charm and quick thinking helped him navigate these risky identities. He was skating on thin ice, but each successful con only emboldened him to push further. The FBI, however, was starting to take notice. Agent Joseph Shea, a top FBI investigator, was assigned to track down this elusive pilot. Shea was no ordinary agent. He was known for his tenacity and experience with complex cases. Yet even he struggled to keep up with Frank's constantly shifting personas. Shea followed Frank's trail of forged checks across states and countries, marveling at his brazenness and skill. As Frank's schemes grew bolder, his trail of crimes became harder to ignore. The FBI tracked him from city to city, piecing together his past cons and potential next moves. But Frank always seemed one step ahead, slipping out of reach just as the FBI closed in. The chase continued until 1969, when Frank made a critical mistake. After years of living under assumed identities, he had gotten comfortable in France, his mother's homeland. But it was here that his past finally caught up with him. French police recognized him and arrested him on charges of forgery. Frank was sent to prison in France, where conditions were so poor that he later described it as worse than death. After serving his time in France, he was extradited to Sweden, and from there, he was eventually handed over to the United States, where he faced charges for a staggering list of crimes. Back in the United States, Frank was sentenced to prison. But even incarceration wasn't enough to tame his rebellious spirit. In 1971, Frank managed to escape from a federal prison by posing as an undercover prison inspector, convincing the guards that he was in fact investigating prison security. He walked right out of the facility, a nearly unbelievable feat of trickery that humiliated the authorities and reinforced his legend as a master of deception. Eventually, Frank was recaptured and faced a lengthy sentence, but his story took an unexpected turn. After years of running and defrauding, he was offered a unique deal: work with the government, helping authorities prevent crimes like the ones he had committed, or remain in prison for the rest of his life. Frank chose redemption. Today, he's a respected security consultant, advising businesses and banks on preventing fraud. His incredible story, which has inspired movies, books, and even lectures, remains a testament to the ingenuity and audacity of one of the world's most remarkable con artists. If you enjoyed hearing this incredible story, don't forget to give a like, hit that subscribe button, and click on the notification bell to stay updated on our latest videos. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time with more intriguing stories.